So we're going to go over the zipCracker Python 3 second assignment. In the first one, we used the RockU dictionary of collected passwords, and that's for a brute force attack on a locked up or encrypted zip file. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to do a more targeted attack. So we're going to make the assumption that we have done some social hacking and have more information to work with. Let's say it's just more targeted, more focused. And so normally what we would do once we've done that is we probably would write a different program, which is beyond the scope of this assignment, and we would populate our own dictionary with the most likely passwords. And if we were doing this for real, what we would do is like I said, we would have a separate application that would try mixing up the different passwords. So like I said, let's say it was targeted, we knew it was a student, we knew there was a class, we knew they're using Kelly and Linux and their PHSC, and so we would use some very common passwords that are more likely to have been used by the person, maybe some birth dates if we knew who it was. And what we'd want to do is we'd write a different application that would populate this dictionary, mixing up these passwords and trying different variations, so we'd have a very comprehensive dictionary. But again, that's a separate assignment. For this assignment, we're just going to assume that we've already done that and we have some very few passwords. Now, I'm using only a few passwords to demonstrate the actual code of how to do the cracker password. And so that's why this is just a few passwords, just for demonstration purposes. Now, the password for the zip file in our example is COP2030. That's what we're going to be using right here. And but it's going to go through each one of these. But we can imagine there might be thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of passwords that we're going to iterate through. So again, for demonstration purposes, they're just these ones. So let's go ahead and close out of this. The first thing you need to notice is that all of our information needs to be in the same directory. So I have a folder here called the zipCracker py3, and that's because I wrote the code for Python 3. And so we have the dictionary that I just showed you. We have our encrypted zip file. If you tried to open it, it has a text file in there called evil.txt, and has a password which, if you don't know it, then you can't get into it. So it's password protected, which is what we want. All right, and then we have our actual Python script, and here's our script written in the idle, using the idle editor. Okay, so I didn't want to rewrite it. I'm just going to go through the code and explain it line by line. So the first thing that I want you to notice is that, again, this is written for Python 3. So here we're going to import the argparse, and this is the latest one. I think the other one was called the octparse, and that was depreciated. So we're using argparse, which is what we should be using now. And so we're going to be using that to parse our the user input and have our different variables set to whatever it is that they're going to do. Plus, we can also have a help menu because of the way the parser works. We'll also be importing the zip file library so that we can work with zips. This is the library that we're going to be using because it has the properties to extract the files from the zip file. That's very, very helpful. And then I'm going to introduce you to threading. And so threading is we're going to be using multiple threads of our processor. Because our dictionary is so small, we really don't need multiple threads. But again, let's make the assumption, real world, there were hundreds of thousands of passwords that we're going to try. Then threading would be very important. So we're going to be using threading so that we can try multiple passwords at the same time. Okay, so we have our first function, and the way I would have written this if I was starting from scratch is everything I just highlighted would not exist. I would have the first function, which is the main function on line 5, defined, and I would have the line 41 through 43 if name equal main, then main. And you don't really need to do this part if you're just running on a single script. But it's a good habit to get used to always setting it up in this manner, because usually you're going to have multiple scripts, and you do want to run the first script and make sure that it's the main function. Okay, so having said that, the next thing that's going to happen is line 6, and we're going to use our parser. And we're going to do the property argument parser, and we're going to set the description in case that we need to know what it does. And we're going to set the description to the -f, and we're going to tell the user that we need the zip file. -d is for dictionary, so that we know what the description of this parser is for. We're taking in a couple of properties here, and excuse me, a couple of arguments. And on line 7 and 8, we're actually going to add those arguments. So here we're using the parser.add_argument property in order to now take in this information from the user. So the -f is going to be designed as a destination for zname. If help is needed, then we are going to say specify the zip file. On line 8, that argument is going to be -d for dictionary. The destination is going to be dname. And again, here, if help is required, then it's going to tell the user to specify the dictionary file. Okay, so once we've added these arguments, all we need to do is set these arguments to args, which we did on line 10. Now, all that means the user input is now set into the args, and on line 12, we can now test to make sure that we have the required arguments. On line 12, we're going to use an if statement to say that if either one or the other, the zname or the dname, have none, then we're just going to exit. We're going to print the usage, and we're gone. Okay, but as long as we have the information, we're going to jump to line 16, and we're going to set our variables that are in scope for the main to the zname and dname. Zname is now going to be assigned to the value of args.zname, so whatever they entered for the zip file. Line 18 is going to take the dname, and it's going to be assigned the args.dname. On line 20, we're going to assign the zip files in the dictionary to the variables. Actually, that's done right up in here. But here we're now going to say, okay, take z file is going to equal to the zip file.zname, so that we can have that information for our zip file, and now we will be able to extract it. But we need to tell it what the zip file is. And the pass file is now going to open up the dictionary. So pass file is going to open up the dictionary, which is right here, so we can have our dictionary, our password list. All right, once we have those two, now we can do some work. We're going to throw everything into a for loop, and we're going to say, okay, let's go through each line in the pass file, which is right here, and we're going to read those lines. Now, because these lines have all been entered, and we've hit the enter key to add each new entry, we need to check for the break, the new line, the \n, which is the new line character here, and we need to get rid of that. So we're going to say password is equal to the line.strip, and we're going to strip this away. And what line 26 has given us, it's given us just the clean password. And then on line 27, we're going to start our first thread. We're going to say, okay, now t is going to equal thread, and here we're going to target our new function down here, and we're going to send it the arguments. And the arguments are z file and password, which the user entered. And then we're going to start that thread. And so now we jump down to the function. We have z file and password, which are passed on line 27, and we're going to try and see, can we extract from the zip file? Can we extract everything in there? And we're going to use the pwd reserved keyword. We need to for Python 3. We need to say that we're going to be using bytes, B-Y-T-E-S, and the password is going to be in UTF-8. So we need to tell it that. So here the password is going to equal bytes password, whatever password we're trying from the list. And now we're going to print if we found it. Otherwise, we're going to exit, and we'll just pass. So we try, it fails. It's going to fail line 33. It jumps down here to pass, and the next thread tries. And so we just keep trying all these threads over and over and over again. Again, this isn't sequential. The threads are all going to run. Well, the threads will be assigned sequentially, but we don't have to wait for one thread to complete for the next thread to start. So that means if we had hundreds of thousands of passwords, then we could have a whole bunch of them trying, and as each one ends in a new thread is assigned, a new password is assigned to a new thread. And that all happens because we're creating these new threads right here, and then t-start. All right, but once a password is found, we're done. It's going to print the password and then exit. Done. We're good. Okay, so there's probably a million different ways you could write this code. This is the way that I wrote it, and yes, you could write this in an OOP, but like I said, we're just for simplicity and because I don't have a lot of time, we just wrote it in straight functions. Okay, so now let's demonstrate how to run this thing. I'm going to go ahead and close out of the this thing here, the dictionary, and show you that all these files, the 3 files here, are all located in the zipCracker py3. So we need to go ahead and open up our we need to open up a terminal here, and now we're in Python. You can see I'm using the root level user, and so now we're going to say the first thing we need to do is we need to set the directory, because if we don't do this, then it will not find those files. We have to tell it. So I've already done this once, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this. So the change directory, we're going to change directory to the desktop. You can see desktop, and then the name of the folder that contains these files, which is zipCracker py3, which is right here. We're going to go ahead and hit enter, and now you can see that the directory has been changed in Kali, so now we can work with those files. Now it's just a matter of entering in the actual code to in the command line here to run this. So we're going to do sudo again, Python 3. You'll notice I want emphasis on the 3 because we're using Python 3 on this one, and zipCracker 3, which is this code that I just went over. And the argument that we're going to be using, the first argument of our code, is going to be f, which is the name of the file, and the name of the secured encrypted file is my file. And now the dictionary we'll be using is the dictionary that I also went over, and it's just dictionary.txt. And now we can go ahead and enter, and it found the password very quickly. Password COP2030. Let's go ahead and open our dictionary again, and that was this one right here. We can close that. And what it did was, because of the extract on line 27, extract the file, when it found the password, it went ahead and extracted the file using that property of the zip file. What happened is it extracted it and removed the file and set it right here. So this didn't exist before. Now we actually know we have this extracted, and we can actually see what it says. And it says, hello students. So this is the file that was encrypted inside of the myfile.zip. And that's it for this one. Pretty relatively simple. I'll go ahead and leave this up for a moment so that you can see how it was done. We have the code, we have the commands, and we have the screenshot of the different files. All right, well that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. Happy coding.